They say some books are never written, they are summoned. Arnav, a curious and quiet college student, often escaped the noise of the world in an old, forgotten library on the outskirts of town. It smelled of wet wood, moldy paper, and something else, something older. One rainy afternoon, while brushing dust off a crumbling shelf, his hand touched something strange, wedged behind a line of encyclopedias. It was a leather-bound diary with cracked pages, locked shut, and titled in faded ink. Diary number. On each no author, no publisher, just a waxy black seal burned into the cover, a symbol he didn't recognize. Something about it called to him. Back at his dorm, Arnav forced it open. On the first page, in jagged handwriting, were the words, "To the one who dares read. Know this, what you read, you invite. Every story here is real, and your story begins now." What followed were entries, detailed, terrifying entries, each about a different person. A girl named Maya, who began hearing whispers through walls after reading the diary, eventually found scratching sounds beneath her skin. She clawed herself bloody trying to dig them out, and then, one day, simply vanished. Arnav thought it was some sick joke, a made-up horror collection maybe. But as the nights passed, he began to feel watched. His dreams changed. They weren't his. He started dreaming other people's deaths. In one, he was a man burned alive in a locked room. In another, he drowned in a mirror filled with blood. And then, it happened. The diary began updating on its own. New pages appeared overnight, with his name. Entry 41, Arnav, the boy who won't stop reading. The entry described things he hadn't done yet, but did later, like walking out into the rain at 3:03 a.m., or calling a number he didn't remember dialing, or seeing a woman in the corner of his room whispering in reverse. He tried burning the diary. It wouldn't catch fire. He buried it in the woods. It was back on his desk the next morning. He mailed it to a fake address. It returned, tucked inside his backpack with a fresh entry. "You can't throw away what you invited in." Paranoia consumed him. He stopped going to class. He boarded up his windows. He whispered apologies into the dark. But the diary kept writing. It knew things about him he never told anyone. That he cheated on an exam. That he had thoughts of harming himself. That he sometimes wished he wasn't even real. Then one night, the diary wrote a final entry. Last chapter, when the reader becomes the written. He stared at those words for hours. The next day, Arnav didn't speak. He didn't eat. He didn't blink much. People said his eyes looked hollow, like he'd been erased from inside. On the seventh night, he vanished. Room locked from inside. Windows sealed. Only one thing left, the diary, placed neatly on his desk, waiting for someone else. The janitor found it weeks later and handed it to the librarian, who simply smiled and placed it back on the same shelf, where it waits now. If you're listening to this, if you ever find yourself in an old library and you see a diary labeled number 13, don't read it, because it's already writing about you.